My friend, today I bring you most non-heinous news. We're going to be talking about the film This is, of course, the third installment in the popular franchise. It just came out. Unfortunately, I've had the displeasure of watching it, and I sit before you crushed and disappointed like I never thought I would be. I feel about as bad as when I walked out of The Last Jedi. That movie, to me, gutted Star Wars. Bill and Ted Face the Music. It's just as bad, in my opinion, as The Last Jedi. I didn't want to bring you bad news, but please prepare yourself, because here are the 15 reasons why Bill and Ted Face the Music is a terrible, terrible film. Number one, Bill and Ted have daughters, and they take up most of the plot with a side quest of their own. Now, I don't have a problem with this conceptually. However, the actresses, save for Samara Weaving, are cringy. And cringy is a word I'm going to use a lot. This whole movie is fairly cringy in a way that the other Bill and Ted films were not. Number two brings us back to the girl Bill and Ted, of course, the daughters of Bill and Ted. You see, if you think back to the film Bogus Journey, at the end of that film, Bill and Ted show up with babies. Male babies. You see, Bogus Journey establishes that Bill and Ted do become parents of boys. What happened to those baby boys established in Bogus Journey? Guys, canon is important. Canon is important. How could the writers who wrote this movie, the creators, wrote Face the Music, how could they forget that Bill and Ted had boys at the end of Bogus Journey? Which brings me to number three. This film looks and feels and operates as if it was written by strangers. What I mean is, it feels like someone took the concept of Bill and Ted and said, "Hey, let's make a sequel, and we'll just kind of do whatever we want, and we'll tell our own kind of PC woke version of Bill and Ted," and that's what happens. Canon goes out the window. I'm going to get to some more canon flubs, but canon goes out the window specifically with the Bill and Ted sons being replaced into daughters. Plus a couple of other things. And the kicker here is that the people who wrote this are the creators. The people who wrote part 1 and part 2. How do the creators write a sequel that feels so at odds with the rest of the series? Not only do they change the sex of the kids, but they affect all the other sequels by making one crucial change. What is that crucial change? I'll tell you right now. They have characters in the movie say that Rufus believed that Bill and Ted were going to save the world. Rufus believed. Do you understand what this one means? This means that Rufus was acting on a whim, a hunch. But that's not what happened. In the beginning of part 1, we know that Bill and Ted are the saviors of humanity. We see a video of them playing guitar. We know it is a big established part of the future. It's also a big established part in the second one that Bill and Ted are the saviors of humanity no matter what. It isn't Rufus's whim. It isn't Rufus's theory that maybe these two, morons in San Dimas are going to save the world. So by saying in this movie that Rufus made it up, or Rufus thought thought it might be a good idea, or Rufus believed yada yada yada, you are gutting established canon from part 1 and part 2, and the only reason they're doing that is to make this one interesting. And what it does is make it completely devoid of any interest, because it can't possibly be a true movie. It can't possibly be a true adventure, because we know Rufus was not just some dude. He was working for the council. He was helping Bill and Ted, yada, yada, yada. They take away Rufus's importance in the story, and that hurts. Number 5 is a little tricky, so I'm going to work through it little by little for you. Now, time travel makes absolutely no sense in this movie, and I understand time travel is very, very complicated to get right. The plot of the film is that Bill and Ted have yet to write that song to unite the world. Now, at the end of Bogus Journey, we thought that that was already a done deal because we saw them have a giant career. They played the Grand Canyon, they played on the moon, or Mars, I forget, one of those two. They played in space, basically. You know, they were huge. They were a massive, massive band. They were loved worldwide. This movie begins, and we find out that the band hit rock bottom. People stopped buying the albums. It didn't work out for them. 25 years later, we find them down in the dumps. They haven't written the song, and no one gives a crap about Bill and Ted. That, of course, undermines what happened at the end of Bogus Journey, which was, for all intents and purposes, their final adventure, because they had achieved what Rufus told them they would achieve. In this film, they are taken to the future and told that they need to write the song to unite the world, and not only that, save reality as well. And they need to do that right now. As a matter of fact, in a couple of hours, because that's when it's supposed to be written. Which means that the future knows the exact date that this life-changing, world-altering, life-saving song was going to be written. If they knew the exact day, if Rufus knew the exact day, why didn't he tell Bill and Ted, you will write this song in 25 years. You will write this song, blah, 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 on a specific date. You will have a career, and this song will come up, and it will save the world. If they knew the exact date, why in the hell wouldn't they tell them that? Bill and Ted are shocked. They're like, oh, whoa, we have to write it today? Why didn't they tell you sooner? I'm sorry, I'm getting worked up because canon is important. I'm gonna keep harping on that. Not only that, the first two movies established that you can just think something and the future will reciprocate. For example, in part 1, they're trying to break in to the prison to break out all the historical figures so they can do their report. So they say stuff like, you know what we should do? After the report, we'll go back in the time machine and we'll steal your dad's keys, we'll hide the keys here so we can break into the jail cell. That establishes that time can be altered just by thinking it. So, why couldn't Bill and Ted just say, well, let's just think of the song, and we'll save the world, and everything will be okay. And then that would have fixed it, because that is how time travel works, according to the rules in Part 1 and Part 2. As a matter of fact, Bill and Ted's entire plot in Part 3 makes absolutely no sense, because their plan is to use the phone booth to travel to the future, their future, to find out what the song was, and basically cut out the middleman, grab the song they've already written, and bring it to the present and sing it. However, this doesn't make any sense, because if they have to sing the song that saves the world in a matter of hours, how can there be a future? How can they travel to the future if that future won't exist? Because reality will have melted away because the song didn't exist. This is a huge logic problem as far as I'm concerned, because not only does it contradict their work in the original films, but also acts as a barrier plot-wise for this film. They visit themselves in 3 different timelines, and nothing comes of it, because those guys didn't write the songs either. But how do those timelines exist, and how does that future exist? As a matter of fact, how does the future of the future exist, and how do those people know that Bill and Ted will write the song on that specific date if they didn't do it already? There's a deeper discussion about time travel here. We don't have time to get into it at the moment. The point is, my friend, that time travel in this movie makes absolutely no sense and contradicts the events of Part 1 and Part 2, which is a huge no-no as far as I'm concerned. The proof that the future exists is already proof that Bill and Ted saved the world in the beginning, and them stressing about it really doesn't affect anything. Number 6 is one you won't believe, but trust me, it's real. It takes 20 minutes for Bill and Ted to do an air guitar. 20 minutes into the movie. They don't do it until 20 minutes into the movie, and then after that they maybe do it 3 other times. This is sort of a 6B. Bill and Ted don't feel like Bill and Ted in this movie. They they're lacking energy. I mean, obviously they're middle-aged. I get it. But in the first two movies, they were exhaustive and full of energy and pep. And here they're just dour, depressed, normal people. And that's not the Bill and Ted that I signed up to see. And that's not the Bill and Ted I remember. And honestly, they're not great. I will say Alex Winter is doing the best with his Bill. He is putting in 110%. However, Keanu Reeves is really phoning it in with his Ted. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure why he looks the way he looks. He looks like a young Severus Snape or kind of a posh Dracula. There's something about his gaunt features and his long hair, and he's really pale. He doesn't look healthy in this movie. Now, I know they probably didn't have a huge budget to make this movie, and it shows. There are some really awful CG and green screen shots in the film, to the detriment, to be honest. I know they probably wanted to go make it look bigger and better than the other films, but honestly, the CG and the green screen work looks really shoddy, really low rent, and it almost feels like I'm watching a Sci-Fi Channel show. Which brings me to number 8. The movie in general feels like a TV show, almost like a high-end Star Trek kind of thing. You can tell it wasn't shot on film. It has a very flat digital look and almost, I guess the best way to describe it would be sort of a TV movie quality. Number 9, we've established that Bill and Ted, and specifically Wild Stallions, is a famous band. They've played all over the world, yada, yada, yada. There's a scene in the film where they run into Dave Grohl. They recognize him. They say, Dave Grohl, which is good because I probably would not have known who that was if they didn't say, Dave Grohl. Dave Grohl looks at them and says, who are you guys? Now, does that make any sense? No, of course not. If Wild Stallions was a massive band, Dave Grohl would know who they are. I know it's a nitpick, but you can only be so forgiving with a movie. I refuse to let little things go if it rubs me the wrong way and affects the logic of the movie. Number 10, small spoilers, but they keep running into future versions of themselves, and for some reason, their future versions are always assholes. Why would Bill and Ted ever be dicks to themselves? That doesn't even make any sense. I mean, it worked in Bogus Journey because there were evil robots, evil Bill and Ted. In this version in this sequel, I should say, the Bill and Teds from the future that we keep running into to find out if they wrote that song are dicks. They're always asshole jerks, except for one, which I won't mention. I'll keep that a surprise. But the majority of them are not nice, and that's not Bill and Ted. Bill and Ted is a happy, positive duo. They're smiling all the time. They love life. You know, they're very much got that kind of like dog mentality, where like one thing bad happens, but then the next second they're happy. They're, they're playing around, jumping around, very excited, very, very energetic. That's what we love about them. That they're very positive, and sort of they let shit roll off their backs. They don't care about negativity and things like that. So to have asshole versions of them in the future makes absolutely no sense. That's not what Bill and Ted would become. The girl Bill and Ted, their real names are Billy and Thea. They have the main plot of the movie. As a matter of fact, their storyline is the storyline that Bill and Ted should have had, and they don't. They get shunted off on a really ridiculous fetch quest, and Billy and Thea will really take the plot by the horns and essentially recreate events in the first movie. I'm marking this as the 11th thing I didn't like because it's unfair to take the movie away from Bill and Ted. The movie's called Bill and Ted. It's their movie. Let them actually have an active part in it, please. Now, the film makes use of the term reality jumping. They mention that different realities coming together is what's going to save the world, essentially. But if we take that and apply it to the rest of the movie, then it also counteracts the events of Part 1 and Part 2. Because if reality is at play, then does it really matter if Bill and Ted write the song? Or does it really matter that Bill and Ted get separated in the first movie and Ted heads off to military school? If reality-wise, they do eventually write the song, or reality-wise, they actually don't get separated in some alternate version, then does it matter if the history, test is passed and Ted goes to military school? It's fine, because in another version, another reality, Bill and Ted will write that song. It seems like the song is a done deal. So going back in time and tampering with things really wouldn't make any sense. Again, I know I'm getting a little heady, a little sciencey, but when the film is so chock full of inconsistencies when it comes to time and reality, I have to point it out the best I can. This is a small spoiler, so I do apologize. There is a robot in the film named Dennis, and he's been sent from the future to kill Bill and Ted because they believe that the prophecy that Rufus believed in was really maybe that Bill and Ted should die, and that's when the world would unite. However, if they believed that killing Bill and Ted would save the world, why didn't they kill Bill and Ted in the beginning of the movie? Because Bill and Ted went to the future chambers of the Council of whatever the hell, and they instructed Bill and Ted then and there that you need to write the song tonight. If they thought they should be dead, why not kill them then and there? As a matter of fact, why even tell them the date of the song if you didn't think they would write it? Giving them the date, you might as well give them time to write the fucking song and then let them figure it out. If they don't write it, then kill them. So sending a robot after them seems almost arbitrary and beside the point. Of course, the robot is there to kill Bill and Ted and let death come into the storyline and play with the characters once more. Billy and Thea spend their time traveling through time, collecting musical icons to help their dads write that song to save the world. On their journey, they pick up Louis Armstrong, and I gotta be honest, I thought the actor who portrayed Louis was probably the cringiest in the whole picture. And he had some competition, of course. The gal who plays Billy, is it Billy? Yeah, the gal who plays Billy, who is Ted's daughter, she's trying to copy Keanu Reeves, and it is cringy. That is pretty cringy, but not as cringy as the Louis Armstrong guy. And he does that, oh yeah. I mean, I can't even do it. It's just so bad. And lastly, I do have to say, the movie just ends abruptly. It just kind of stops. And after all that, I feel like we needed some kind of final wrap-up with the characters, because I'm going to be honest, this is the last time we're going to see Bill and Ted. There's not going to be a part 4. There's not going to be a part 4. I'm pretty sure this is the end of the line. And I know they kind of tried to do a thing where Billy and Thea are gonna maybe potentially continue the franchise. I really hope they don't do that. I think that's gonna be pretty terrible if they do that. So another mark against the movie. It just stops. We do get an end credit sequence. I will mention that with Bill and Ted, but it's not exactly the end credit sequence or the final scene we really wanted with these guys. I mean, after this 3-film journey, I think we deserved one final scene with the guys. Sort of as an add-on to that, I don't want to spoil the ending, but the film does a 180 that completely ruins the entire franchise. Because not only do they rewrite part 1 and part 2, but they make Bill and Ted essentially unnecessary. I mean, I guess they had to be there, but it's not what we expected, and I just, in my head, kept hearing Luke Skywalker saying, "This is not going to go the way you think." Oh, I still cringe at that. There's been a lot of cringing tonight. I know. There are 3 things I did love about the movie, to be honest. Number 1, I really enjoyed Dennis the robot. I thought the design was cool, and the way the actor in the suit portrayed the emotions were honestly the funniest thing in the movie. I laughed hardest at all the Dennis stuff than I did at anything else. That's another kind of drawback. This isn't a very funny movie. Second thing I loved, of course, William Sadler is back as Death, and he nails it. I mean, the dude is amazing, and he looks flawless. I mean, compared to Keanu Reeves' like Dracula look, I mean, I feel William Sadler hasn't aged a day. He looks great. He's back in rare form. I mean, the Death character, he recaptured perfectly. He does such a wonderful job with that character, and it's so funny, and all his lines are perfect. He delivers them perfectly. Death is a standout in this one as well. And number 3, Wendy Shaw joins the cast as Rufus's daughter, and honestly, she's great. I've always been a big fan of Wendy Shaw. She's very funny. She's very interesting looking, and she definitely pulls off the future vibe and sort of the Rufus elements of the storyline quite well. I liked her quite a bit in this, and I wish she had more to do. Well, my friend, I'm sorry to bring you bad news. Of course, this is only my opinion. Feel free and watch the movie. I hope you enjoy it. I really, really do. But I honestly just didn't like it. I thought it was really, really bad and just awful and just such a betrayal of the series, I guess, is the best way to put it. It was a betrayal of the series, a betrayal of the characters, a betrayal of the storyline that we had grown to understand. Like I said, it's the last Jedi of the Bill and Ted movies, because it's just so not only cheaply made, but the story alone undoes everything that we know about Bill and Ted. Nowadays, wokeness and PC-ness are affecting our movies, specifically our sequels, and I'm worried about the future of film, because it's going to start affecting stuff in the past, as we've seen with Star Wars, with Star Trek, and now, unfortunately, with Bill and Ted, because, well, these guys have been neutered effectively. Well, my friend, I'm going to go drown my sorrows in some whiskey. I hope this video has found you happy, healthy, and well. If you've seen Bill and Ted Face the Music, please let me know, because I'm curious. I'm curious what your thoughts are, if you enjoyed it. If you didn't enjoy it, I want to hear it all. But let's be civil in the comments, and let's all be friends and enjoy each other's opinions for what they are. I will say there is a funny moment in the film where the characters say what I'm thinking.
This is bad. Really bad.
Well, pal, this has been your From the Neighborhood Master Chaos, signing off. I hope this video has found you happy, healthy, and well. I wish you a very pleasant good night. And remember, be excellent to each other, wherever you are.